So here he says, أرح نفسك من التدبير. Relieve yourself from self-direction. Right? فما قام به غيرك عنك فلا تقم به لنفسك. So what another has undertaken on your behalf, do not try to take it on yourself. Relieve yourself from self-direction. What another has undertaken on your behalf, don't take it on yourself. That there are some things you are responsible for. So direct yourself towards those things. Plan those things out. Exert your effort in them. And there's things that you are not responsible for. There are things that are not in your control. Let go of them. Right? Let go of them. Right? And this is something that you see in all spiritual traditions. They talk about this. And they often talk about this in ways that are meant to be provocative. Or at the very least, very evocative, so you think about it. The parting advice of one of the great spiritual masters of North Africa, Sidi Ali al-Jamal, to his student, Imam al-Darqawi, was, إِرِحْ نَفْسَكَ وَتَعَلَّمِ الْعُومِ. Relax and learn how to swim. I heard something like, what in the world does that mean? Right? Meaning let go, right? Like that, in reality, when you swim, there's some effort that you exert, but you are not the one who's floating. Right? There's an ocean that keeps you up. Right? So learn. So that's part of. This is a key to contentment in life. But what is tadbir? What is self-direction? Imam Zarruq, in his commentary on this hikmah, he defines it that it's تقدير شؤون تكون عليها في المستقبل. It is to try to define matters and their outcomes in the future. Right? It is to try to define and specify outcomes and the way they'll be in the future. And that's different from hope. Because hope is seeking that which is worthy of being sought. It's seeking something desirable in the future and taking the means for it. So positive hope is, okay, this is what I hoped for, and these are the means that I'm taking. But the test of hope is, what if you don't get what you're seeking? You took the means, that's what you're responsible for. And we know that we are rewarded by our intentions. So if you took the means to a desirable result. So Zubayr wanted to marry Zubaydah. He took the means to marrying her. He mustered up his courage and went to Uncle Jamil. And he said no. And you have the reward of having married Zubaydah. Okay? You thought, she's the best thing since, the Maryam. And you have the reward of the actions. And the test of sound hope, of sound reliance, of sound trust in Allah is, what if what you sought does not work out? Right? And when hope becomes self-direction is when you try to control outcomes. Right? Because outcomes can't be controlled, and that changes the way you pursue the means. The Prophet ﷺ put it in an amazing, beautiful way. He said, and this is how you approach everything in life. Work, all your goals and plans. He said, فَأَجْمِلُوا فِي الطَّلَبِ. And he said, ﷺ, I was granted encompassing speech. فَأَجْمِلُوا فِي الطَّلَبِ, which ijmal has the sense of having restraint. So be restrained in your seeking. But ajmilu also, make beautiful your seeking. Okay? So seek in a beautiful, restrained manner. There's a degree of seeking that is praiseworthy. Right? That is part of your fulfilling your responsibility as a servant of God, whether it be in spiritual matters or in mundane matters. So you pursue that. But there's a going above and beyond that puts you in worry, anxiety, can depress you when things aren't working out, that vitiates reliance upon Allah, trust in Allah, consigning matters to Allah, all these spiritual qualities that are entailed by faith. So this is the negative self-direction, right? That is, whereas planning is praiseworthy. Related to this, the ulama mention that concern is of two types, right? Worry is blameworthy in the Sharia. And worry is when you consider matters without consideration of responsibility. That what can I do about it? Right? And that is what leads to anxiety. Oh, this is going on. Oh, this is going on. But what do I do about it? Whereas concern, right? Concern is when you consider matters, right? And you consider what you are responsible to do, right? And that's one of the ways of relieving oneself of self-direction, but also anxiety, etc., is to ask yourself the question, what am I responsible for? Right? And what can I do about it? And pay attention to that and let go of what is beyond that. For what another has undertaken, what Allah has undertaken, leave. He's running the world, you're not. And whether it has to do with global, what's going on in the world? Okay? It's in the hands of Allah. You're not responsible for it. What are you responsible for? What is positive concern? What can I do about it? And that you are responsible for. Okay? So, and very often our general worry takes us away from our actual concern. So the opposite, and they say al-umuru تعرف الأمور بأضدادها. Matters are known by their opposites. What is the opposite of self-direction, of tadbir? He said there's many things, but two key virtues. One is tafweed, consigning matters to Allah. Right? وَأُفَوِّضُ أَمْرِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. I consign my affairs to Allah. إِنَّ اللَّهَ بَصِيرٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. Truly Allah is well aware of His servants. That's one. And this is related to reliance upon Allah. Reliance upon Allah. That we take the means and we leave matters to Allah. Right? And that's what's entailed by Tawheed. Imam Zarruq was a jurist by training and a great Imam of the spiritual path. There's arguably the three greatest commentators of the Hikam were Ibn Abbad, Imam Zarruq, and Ibn Ajiba. So Shaykh Abdurrahman al-Shaghuri was asked by someone, how do the three commentaries compare? Ibn Abbad, Zarruq, and Ibn Ajiba. So Shaykh Abdurrahman rahimahullah, he said, Sidi Zarruq, faqih, Sufi. Ibn Abbad, Sufi, faqih. Ibn Ajiba, Sufi, faqih. Right? So Imam Zarruq approaches everything in a very systematic way. You'd think it's a book of fiqh, except that it's spirituality. It's very systematic. So he breaks down self-direction into many many lists. So amongst them, he says, there are three signs of sound seeking. Seeking that is without self-direction. Right? And these are very useful. Right? One is that you have gratitude if you are granted something. Right? Because when you are trying to control everything, then one of the natural consequences, if you achieve it, if you think you are the one who's in control, then you think you achieved it. Whereas the sign that you pursued things with submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with servitude to Allah, is they recognize that it is all from Allah. Right? So this is a sign, gratitude of shukr, when you are granted. And contentment even if not granted, ar-rida. Right? You're content, because it's all from Allah. Right? It's all from Allah, both the giving and the preventing. And you know that the basis of His dealing with you is mercy. And you don't know how His mercy will be manifest. Okay? Ibn Ata'illah said about this later in the Hikam, إِذَا رَأَيْتَ الْعَطَاءَ فِي الْمَنْعِ صَارَ الْمَنْعُ عَيْنَ الْعَطَاءِ. If you behold His giving in His preventing, then His preventing becomes from giving itself. Because He is always giving. You have to understand what He is giving you. And the third is serenity regardless of what happens. And this is difficult. Right? This letting go is very difficult. Right? But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He facilitate. To have sukoon. Right? Have sukoon. And this is not easy. Right? Itmi'nan. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Truly by remembering Allah, do hearts find rest, attain serenity. What causes harmful self-direction? Ibn Ata'illah says, the greatest cause, Imam Zarruq says, the greatest cause is excessiveness regarding taking means. Because you lose sight of the reality that la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, that there's no ability nor power except by Allah. Okay? And part of it is, and this is related to the second, which is heedlessness regarding the realities of divine oneness. And part of that is to make much, if you want to start letting go, is to frequently mention, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no ability nor power except by Allah. So we seek, but we seek by Allah, billah. Heedlessness regarding the realities of divine oneness. Right? And this is one of the functions of remembrance of Allah, is it nurtures the realities of remembering who is the doer. It is Allah alone. And the third is reliance on actions rather than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How does one leave harmful self-direction? Imam Zarruq says there's three ways. Firstly is correcting one's beliefs and consciousness of divine oneness. There's two practical ways regarding this. One is, the ulama say it is good as a matter of personal discipline every once in a while to review one's basic beliefs. Not because one doesn't believe, but to remind oneself. It's easy to take them for granted. Right? So something like the basic creed of Imam al-Ghazali, for example, or the Kharid al-Bahiyya, or any basic, just to read it, just to remind oneself. Right? To look at the Quran as a book of Tawheed. Right? Allah is telling us about Himself, reflecting on what Allah is telling us in the Quran, and remembrance of Allah, right? To have consciousness of divine oneness. And then from that, reflecting on the inherent neediness of all creation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are needy and dependent on God. That's your basic inherent reality. And everything else in existence is needy and dependent on Allah. So just as you cannot benefit nor harm yourself, nothing else can benefit nor harm you. Right? It is all in the hands of Allah. And the third is to flee from means. Right? Fleeing from means, meaning with your heart. That you have to behold that nothing, you have to make that a conscious commitment. How? Before you begin anything, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ. If you ask Allah. وَإِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. And if you rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.